So we've been talking about the market. And the need for each of you to explore the markets for your clients, try to help them or suggest to them a definition of their relevant market. Think about the size of the market. But dig into descriptors, buyer behavior of the people who buy barbecue, of the people who buy daycare, of the people who buy the services of the woman working with the folks coming out of incarceration in Elkhart. Beyond getting a general sense of how buyers buy is this issue of that all your entrepreneurs must try to move them towards. And that is market segmentation. So, Aviona, what's your major? Psychology. Perfect. So, from somebody who is a psychology student, trying to help low-income entrepreneurs with business challenges. When I say market segmentation, how do you interpret that? What does that mean to you? Okay, Kiki? What does it mean to you? The segment of market.
I think it's really finding your niche and your target population and what it really allows you to specialize in a lot of ways.
Explain. Correct. Explain. Specialize.
Yeah, it allows you to focus your marketing segment and spend less money knowing who you're going to target. In addition to that, I guess you're filling a more niche role potentially.
So many of you in your business models attempted to I hope you didn't think you were actually segmenting the market. What you attempted to do is provide examples of possible segments that might exist for your clients. And there was some creativity there. There were some insights there. I liked what a lot of you did. What's missing from that picture? As you tried to break the market up, and that's what you're doing. You have an overall market, a defined relevant market. If you recall from my example, Mike's cards and gifts and spiritual stuff, it was a 5-mile radius around my store. People with 30,000 or more of household income, B2C. You have a defined market for your clients. And with segmentation, we're sort of splitting that market into clusters or subgroups or segments. And so when you think about the segmentation schemes that you came up with for your clients, what did you focus on as you came up with those? What did you focus on? Yes. Yes. Canaries.
Focused on.
You did focus on the who, but you came up with these different segments by doing what? What was going on in your head as you came up with processes? That's always a good word.
End user type analysis.
Okay, that's exactly right. What do you mean by that?
It means that we are dividing it only by the kind of people who will be using it as opposed to any of their other attributes. So just simply what defines them as an individual subgroup.
Okay, so implicit in what you just said is you're sitting there going, somebody's buying barbecue or somebody's buying fill in the blank, whatever the product or service is. If I think about the marketplace, people out there that might do that buying, what are their needs? Right? When it comes to buying whatever the product or service is, painting, if it's the woman who does the painting and the drywall and stuff. Pet care, if it's the woman who has all the doggy daycare and so forth. So you're focused on the needs. And people have different needs when they buy a shirt, or when they buy a pet sitter, or when they buy whatever it is. And so you sort of segmented with sort of need-based segmentation, as you talked about, well, single moms with no time as a segment. They would have a unique need when it comes to, okay, what's missing from that picture? What's missing from the way you tried to segment the market?
Other attributes like geography or income and stuff.
So trying to basically take those need segments and apply demographics or other kind of descriptors. Yeah, that is actually your point a few moments ago. That's right. That's correct. But what else should drive your thinking? Another way of saying this is, if I have a segment, what makes it a good segment? Yeah.
How much market share you can hold within that market?
All right, so let's call that how sizable is the segment? Is it a big enough segment to warrant attention? Right? That would be important.
How much of it you can capture?
And how much of it you can capture is the issue I'm trying to get to, actually. But is the segment sizable?
It's easy to get them to buy from you.
Yeah.
How easy is it to get them to buy from you?
How easy is it to get them to buy from you? And how much, and given how easy or hard it is to get them to buy from you, how much of the segment can we, so you guys are talking the same thing? Yeah. But if I'm Chase Bank. Everybody know Chase Bank? If I'm Chase Bank, I think it's the biggest bank in America, and I'm in South Bend. What's my problem? What's my problem succeeding, surviving, making money?
Competitions like American.
There's a lot of competition in the banking space. A and B. South Bend is not a dynamically growing city. So the market is pretty what? Limited, stagnant, saturated. Those are good words. So what does that immediately tell you about Chase Bank and many of your customers? I mean, many of your clients. What's the problem if I'm Chase? What does corporate headquarters expect of the South Bend branches? That they will sell more in bank services this year than they did last year. For them to sell more, and this is the problem every one of your client faces, for you to sell more, right? What question must you address? Think like a consultant. For you to sell more, what question must you address?
If the market's growing,
It's not. Yes.
What percent of the market could you reasonably capture?
Yes, it's an important question. But it's a question I raised last time.
Is it like repeated, like it's
You're on the right path. Where will those sales come from? I raised that question last time. And what was my answer?
Or,
There are four sources. Sales can only come from four sources. Attracting new users to the market, increasing usage rate, taking customers from competitors, or simply retaining people who've already bought from you. That's it. So if I'm Chase, what's it tell you? Are there a lot of people in South Bend, new people moving here that have never used bank services before? So we're not gonna attract a lot of new users to the market. There's no potential there. Is there a lot of room in South Bend to take people who are already banking and get them to use more banking services than they're using right now? Not much. So any growth in sales at Chase Bank will come from where? Taking customers from other banks and holding on to the customers they have. They're forced strategically to take that pathway. That will guide their marketing. So then they start segmenting. And what's one of the most attractive, interesting market segments for a bank today? Think about bank services. Many of you have bank accounts. What is one of the most attractive segments for banks today? Yes,
Students, young people, just getting started, maybe.
let's go a little further down that road. Yes, sir. That's not a market segment. Maybe, but who are they? What's the segment? Well, it's what we said, it's the younger people.
It's opening at 40.
One of the most interesting segments available to banks today are young, professional women. There are more of them. It's a rapidly growing segment. We like them because they're young, so there are a lot of years ahead of them in terms of need for different bank products, loans, different kind of savings accounts, CDs. And if they're young, professional, they got a little money. They're making their first, it's like when you graduate from Notre Dame, you get a job. It's like, I've had jobs before, but this is the first real paycheck I've had before in my life. All right, so if Chase Bank, and just insert name of your client instead of Chase Bank, is gonna go after this market segment in South Bend, and we come back to this issue of needs, what's a key characteristic that defines something as a good market segment? Would define young professional working women as an attractive market segment. The segment can't just be sizable, right? And to be sizable, it needs to be measurable. But most critically, the segment needs to be
profitable.
to be profitable, we have to get there. Oh, I thought you were gonna say something. The segment, Ada?
Attainable.
Obtainable. So let's call that reachable. That's a good one. Yes.
Attractive.
Well, if it's measurable and sizable, it's attractive, and if these things would make it attractive, right? It has to be actionable. What's that mean? Yes, ma'am.
It's maybe when clients from this segment, they're like dynamic, they take action, they invest.
There have to be things, stuff that the entrepreneur could do to get that business. Okay, I'm Chase Bank. We got a number of young and ostensibly soon-to-be professional working women in the room. What's the problem with being a young professional working woman? I don't care what anybody says. The workplace is still quite chauvinistic. Working women are at a disadvantage. Women are still paid less for the same work as men across the country. What's that mean if I'm a young professional working woman? I feel doubly pressured to prove myself. So I'm not just working 40 hours a week, I'm working 50 or 60, whatever it takes to stand out, right? Meanwhile, what am I doing? I'm 25, I'm 26, I'm 24. What else am I doing? I'm getting married. I'm having kids. I'm doing normal human things. And divorce rates are quite high in this country. So in many cases, I'm a single mom, working professionally, trying to get on with my career, dealing with all the discrimination that exists out there. Now, what matters to me when it comes to using a bank? Because if everything I just described is accurate, what's it tell you? I got no time. I got no time. Life is frenetic. Life is crazy. I'm dashing around, doing this, doing that, working at home after at the end of the day. Now, for this segmentation scheme, Kiki, to be actionable, what does that suggest about Chase Bank? What does it need to do? What are the actions it needs to take to penetrate that market segment?
It needs to market to women in a way that makes them feel as though they will give them back time in their day.
Doing what?
Making it seamless and easy.
You're gonna learn soon, because what are we talking about now? Marketing. You're gonna learn soon that we approach marketing in terms of 4 P's. Something called product, price, promotion, and place. I'll come back to that. But if it's actionable, that suggests there are things I could do with my product or my price or my promotional approach or place issues, distribution issues, accessibility issues that would elicit a unique response from that market segment. Like, if I got no time, what do I want the bank to do on Saturday? Be open. And maybe even Sunday morning. Would that make sense if I'm crazy busy, frenetic, running around? I don't have time to do banking during the week. Might that be an action the bank could take that would elicit, allow you to penetrate that market segment? Are you getting it? That's what was missing in your segmentation schemes. The other side of the coin, not just looking at the customer needs, but also looking at your entrepreneur and their ability to penetrate the segment, their ability to do actionable things. So what does a market consist of? The markets for your entrepreneurs consist of what? There's that relevant market again, made up of. What are these things?
Individual clients.
These are people that might
And
buy. They are prospects. For you to consider somebody a prospect, what must be true? What would make somebody a prospect for your business?
Maybe they have to meet that criteria we discussed last week of living in a place in a region and the.
Well, they gotta be in the market, yeah, but to be considered a prospect. And have you ever seen that? Mercedes-Benz sports car. It's a beautiful car. I love that car. I have a desire for that car. What? I cannot afford it. So would I be considered a prospect? So a customer must have the willingness and ability to buy to be considered a prospect. Willingness and ability defines you as a potential buyer. I may have to nurture that willingness. Maybe I can do things through financing to enhance your ability to buy, but so what do we know about all those prospects? Oh, there's a 80-20 rule. Any guesses on what the 80-20 rule is?
Like 80% of your outcomes, or in this case, maybe sales are driven by 20% of your prospects.
That's right. Excellent. So what is he saying? 80% of the sales that'll actually come out of this market come from 20% of the prospects. What's that tell you? Two-sided coin. What's it tell you? You could waste a shitload of time focusing on the 80% that are not gonna buy, or certainly not gonna buy anytime soon. Or you could segment and target and concentrate on the 20% that are likely to buy. That's what you're doing when you segment and target, trying to get rid of the chaff, the people are never gonna buy or not gonna buy anytime soon, and figure out the 20%. Make sense? And it is the difference. Segmentation and targeting, targeting just means prioritizing which segments we're going after for the next 12 months. Not necessarily forever, but for the next 12 months, which segments we're going to prioritize, that's called targeting. Okay. It's the difference between a shotgun and a rifle approach to a marketplace. If you fire a shotgun, what does it do?
It shoots once before you have to reload it usually.
What else does it do?
It goes all over the place.
It goes all over the place. It sprays shot all over the place. If you ever drive down a country road and you look at a stop sign and it's all beat up, some clown has fired a shotgun at it. But what's the key to shotgun? Sprays it all over the place. With me? If you fire a rifle, what happens? You could miss the target, but if you hit the target, what happens? It doesn't spray it all over the place. There's a clean hole in the target. Yes. You make an impact. That's right. Those are critical ideas when we talk about marketing. If I say everybody's a potential customer, so whatever I do marketing wise is to kind of appeal to anybody and everybody, what's that sound like? A shotgun approach to the market. If I segment and target, it's more of a rifle approach to the market. And the result of segmentation and targeting is an increase both in efficiency and effectiveness of your resources. And your entrepreneurs don't have much in the way of resources, so you got to be more efficient and more effective. What's the difference between efficiency and effectiveness? I was actually looking behind you, but go ahead. She's trying to look away.
How bad? Well.
Okay,
Efficiency, I would think, is more referring to the cost side of things, where effectiveness is sales.
the easy way to think about these two words is efficiency is doing things the right way. Effectiveness is doing the right things. So you could be efficient, but you could be doing all the wrong things. Your entrepreneurs are forced to be efficient with their resources, their marketing resources, but those marketing efforts may be totally ineffective because they're the wrong approach, targeting the wrong person. Let me give you an example. When I was at Syracuse and we had this inner city program, we worked with an entrepreneur. The toughest part of the city of Syracuse in New York is an area called the South Side. You know about the South Side. Yeah. In all of New York, including New York City, the South Side always rated in the top 5 in terms of high school dropout rates, in terms of crime, in terms of gang activity, every negative social indicator. So we're working with this entrepreneur on the South Side. And how much does it snow in Syracuse? 119 inches a year. That's about 60 more inches than South Bend. And in the middle of South Side is this guy named Bongo. And Bongo was a disadvantaged entrepreneur with a business called Bongo's Jerk Hut. Does anybody know what jerk is? Kiki?
I've heard it's a type of Jamaican, I think.
It's a Caribbean seasoning. Jerk chicken? Well, which is very famous, but Bongo would put jerk seasoning on any kind of meat. Jerk hamburger, jerk pork, jerk chicken, jerk turkey, whatever. And it was good stuff. It was a takeaway place because you didn't want to spend too much time in the place. It had sort of a permanently busted sewage line running right under the front door, but Bongo had big dreams. He believed everybody was a potential customer. And the south of Syracuse is not that big, so the south side of Syracuse, Bongo's shop, it was only about 8-9 blocks to the central business district. And he thought, I'll get all these business guys to come over to Bongos for lunch. And I'll get those students up on a hill at the university to come down to Bongos. Can you imagine that? Hey, let's go down to Bongos. There's 4 feet of snow on the ground and we'll get killed. Probably not. So Bongo, because this is his vision, decides to, and this is where it gets into actionability, which is where you need to live as consultants, action steps. Bongo decides he's gonna advertise in the daily newspaper. Okay, this is a few years ago, where newspapers were a little more viable than they are now. And the guy who sells advertising space for the newspaper was telling Bongo, one ad in our paper would get you exposed to 40,000 readers, plus another 5 to 10,000 in pass-along readers. You know, you leave the newspaper on the bus and the next guy picks it up and reads it. Well, there's another reader. Bongo's all enamored with that because he wants to reach all these people. So he's getting ready to buy newspaper advertising. The students were able to show him not only were these other segments, these other audiences not viable, but in terms of the things he could do to try to get them to come use his service, but they were able to show him his real market was the South Side, was the community, the neighborhoods where he was based. His mistake was he treated all the people that lived in the South Side as a homogeneous market. And they were able to show him, no, there are different market segments within just the South Side. It breaks down into some interesting segments when it comes to selling takeaway food. And so thinking, this is a word we're going to spend a lot of time on, thinking like a gorilla, not a monkey, a guerrilla warrior, or in our case, a guerrilla marketer. What do you think the students helped Bongo do in lieu of, talked him out of doing the newspaper advertising, in lieu of doing the newspaper advertising? Think of the inner city. Think about effective communication channels in the inner city. What might be an effective communication channel in the inner city, Andrew?
Maybe be putting ads on buses.
Ads on buses is not a bad idea. Buses, bus stops. Maybe the residents of the South Side disproportionately are reliant on public transportation. Okay, good. That's very insightful. It turns out, a little research will tell you, churches are actually a critical communication channel in the inner city. They aren't just places for faith. They're places where politics and social needs and many other issues are discussed. So they convinced Bongo. They identified 16 churches. Each church had a church bulletin. And what's on the back page of a church bulletin? Place to mention your business, that you support the church and that the churchgoers should support you, kind of thing. Advertised on the back of the church bulletin, which was a heck of a lot cheaper than newspaper advertising. You get the example? Do you? What have I just illustrated? What's the difference between advertising in the newspaper and the church bulletin in this case?
It's communicating to your intended audience instead of.
What am I trying to teach you?
Efficiency over, or efficiency versus.
I just put a box around it.
Shotgun versus,
Apply the tool I'm giving you. The church bulletin advertising would be a
rifle.
rifle approach. Excellent. Whereas the newspaper advertising would be a shotgun approach. Now let's take it a step further. With the newspaper advertising, where I'm putting generic messages to appeal to anybody and everybody, right? I'm gonna be much less efficient with my scarce dollars than with putting the message in the church bulletin. But I can also tailor that message much more to the inner city market segments I'm going after. So the effectiveness of my message will be much greater than whatever message I put in the newspaper. Does this make sense? Because this isn't a maybe. All of you will have to do this. Think through, okay, my entrepreneur ain't got any resources. So how do what are the actions I can help them take to penetrate more attractive segments? Doesn't mean you're stuck in those segments forever, but it's what we're doing for the next 6 to 12 months to get them more sales, to get them more business. Okay, so segmentation is about, this slide says everything I just said. 80-20 rule, efficiency, effectiveness, rifle rather than shotgun approach to what you're doing. That's the logic of segment and target. Okay? So when we segment B2C markets, business to consumer, we tend to segment around demographics, age, income, race, education, gender, noticeably observable or identifiable things. But as you can see, there are a bunch of other ways to segment. For some of your clients, it may be worth looking at suburban versus urban or even rural segments geographically, or segmenting by zip code or census tract, for which you can find lots of data. I could segment based on psychographics. What's that sound like to our psychologists?
Like, are they impulsive buyers?
Okay, that would be a psychographic segmentation basis. Psychographic, anybody heard of this? Yes, Andrew?
It's like how the customer thinks.
Kind of how they think. If I say it's young, female, and educated, that's demographic. If I say it's
Like any personality trait that affects their buying.
that might influence a psychographic.
Is this the same thing or different than behavioral or lifestyle characteristics?
It is
Like-
exactly that.
Okay.
So the way to think of psychographics, so people who are more outdoorsy, people who are more introverted, people who are more patriotic, people who are more sports-minded, people who are computer nerds. Those are all demographic characteristics. They refer to activities, AIO, activities, interests, and opinions, as opposed to demographics. These are harder to measure. So it's harder to hone in on who the outdoorsy, patriotic people are, or whatever. But it's also much richer. Used to be an ideal approach until people started removing a lot of their information. But what's the beauty of Facebook? Facebook lends itself to psychographic segmentation. Why? What would people put on their Facebook page?
People tend to use their bios or different things to explain like what type of person they are. and what they're into.
This is the kind of music I like to listen to. This is the kind of activities I engage in. These are the books I read. That's all demographic gold. in terms of identifying particular types of customers. Okay, so benefit segmentation is a key one. If you were gonna segment the market for a museum in downtown South Bend, a museum, Studebaker Museum or Art Museum. Benefit segmentation would be segmenting the market based on benefits sought. Benefits sought. Why would different segments go to the museum?
So some might seek, like schools, et cetera, might seek educational benefits, whereas families might seek.
So
weekend-
educational benefit, there's a benefit segment of people that go to the museum to get educated.
Yeah.
Excellent. Why does Matt go to the museum? Matt's sitting there going, I don't. But why would he?
To see a new.
Ask.
I mean, actually, like, that's kind of like realistic.
It's a cheap date and it makes him look
I know.
intelligent, right?
Probably better.
You're gonna get in. It's a social activity. Or is that a segment? People who go to the library for that reason? Are the people who, the museum, are the people who go to the museum to be seen? Because it's a social thing. Right? So you can think of different benefits, benefit segments. Some would argue that's the penultimate way to segment a market based on benefits sought. Some people might go to the museum for fun. So different benefit segments. That's B2B, B2C. Here are ways in which B2B, business to business markets are frequently segmented. And so now it's the type of industry you're in. You're in a restaurant, or you're in insurance, or you're in manufacturing. Those of you selling B2B, your clients, every company in America is in an industry. Okay? Coal mining, plastics manufacturing, retail clothing, they're in an industry. And every industry in America has something called a NAICS code. NAICS, North American Industry Classification System, NAICS. But the beauty of NAICS codes, I sent you that document a few weeks ago about how to use the library resources to do research. There's incredible things that are available at your fingertips. Well, you can look up a NAICS code. Each of your two entrepreneurs has a NAICS code. They belong to an industry with a code attached to it. And you can quickly find all kinds of data on, in St. Joseph County, Indiana, what are the shipments or sales of companies in the whatever code you're looking up. But this is a code that has digits to it, and the more digits, the more specific, closer it's getting to particular products, not just the larger industry. Anyway, a little side journey there. But segmentation of B2B markets often uses NAICS codes or industry categories. This suggests that you're not just using one basis for segmentation. You're not just, so this is what we call a segmentation tree. And this is one, in fact, that was put together by some students who were working with one of our entrepreneurs in our South Africa program. And this was a woman who had a business in one of the shanty towns outside of Cape Town. She sold replacement glass. Replacement glass, that's her business, okay? So what has she done? Or what have the students done with her? With their stand-up flip charts. They've mapped out Well, we could look at a B2B or B2C market, and when we look at the B2B, it could include auto repair shops or building contractors. People building houses. Okay? Those are different segments. If we look at B2C, we could look at car owners versus homeowners, and if we take the homeowners, we could break it down into homes with more severe winter weathers and other geographic areas. And then we could break those homes that have more severe weather into worth more or less than 200,000. That becomes the segmentation scheme. So what are we saying? For the next 12 months, we're going to concentrate on B2C market, homeowners, homes in areas with severe winters that are 20,000 more in value, 200,000 more in value. That's a segmentation and targeting scheme. Make sense, Andrew? Make sense? No? Yes? A little bit? Ask a question.
I think I'm just gonna like process.
Okay. Processing is good. Yeah.
So they've divided it homes in areas with severe and other geographic areas. How,
How's the windows break?
okay. What is the process by which we think about how to break something like this down?
You're starting with the market.
Yeah.
However you've defined it. And you start to ask yourself, well, for what are your clients?
L's Barbecue.
For L's Barbecue, so when people are buying barbecue, is there a B2B or B2C distinction?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that one, I'd use that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I think about the B2B distinction. I might break it down by type of industry, or I might break it down by size of the organization, or whether they're an organization that has more their own clients or more businesses or consumers. On the B2C side, there again, demographics might be a meaningful thing in terms of barbecue. Ethnicity or race might be a meaningful thing in terms of barbecue. Right? So you're just thinking logically through, what do I understand about the segment, or what research can I do to provide more insights on that segment that would be a basis for segmentation that might be actionable. The entrepreneur might be able to do things to take advantage. So here are examples of, you're welcome, of segmentation. Examples of segmentation.
No, I think it's the person is.
Is there extras? Did you get enough? Okay, so here you see some practical segmentation schemes that I've been involved in different ways. The first one was a young lady that she came up with this, I didn't. But she started, she's a little bit like your pet sitter. Who's doing a pet sitter? The pet sitter. I like that business. I like her. But this was before these things were everywhere. She was like a pioneer, one of the early players in starting what she called a puppy playground. That is, I'm talking about a couple decades ago. She was concerned that when you take your pet to the kennel, it's in a cage. And she wanted to have a place you could take your pet where it could romp and play and mess around and do doggy things. And she got quite clever. She had like doggy birthday parties and doggy paraphernalia, hats and stuff, dog, I know, anyway, she started this business, she's quite successful. But this was her original segmentation scheme. And what do you see happening here? She labeled them after the fact, but her research told her there were 4 segments there that she ultimately labeled prudent parents, pet planners, puppy pamperers, and part-timers. And you can see each of those is characterized based on primary benefits sought, the key motivators of their need. I'm a single person, I'm working a 50 or 60-hour job a week, I don't like leaving my pet at home all the time. I'm a prudent parent. The age, any kind of personal descriptors, and other details that her research uncovered. She was way into this, so she spent a lot of time talking to prospective customers, getting a sense, but that's the segmentation scheme she came up with. If you flip the page, the backside there, this is a segmentation scheme that I did as a consultant for a financial services company. This was a financial services company in South Africa. Doesn't matter, it was a dynamic, high-growth financial services company. And how have I segmented this market? What, you asked about logic, right? What am I thinking about? What's the key factor that influences your needs and behaviors when it comes to a financial advisor?
The income that you have.
Or where you are in your career,
Yeah.
which would define the income that you have. And that's exactly what I've done. I've broken it down into segments based on where people are in their professional lives and their work careers, which makes perfect sense if you're talking about financial investment. May not make a lot of sense if you're talking about formal dresses or some other kind of industry. That's what you're trying to do, is think of what makes sense for the kind of industry you're in. So here I've distinguished beginning investors. Yeah, and so, and I think the original scheme actually had 5 segments, not 4, but it gives you a sense of their needs, how they prefer to make financial decisions, their risk profiles, other characteristics that define one segment versus another. If you flip over to the third one is me, again, as a consultant, helping a bread company. What's the problem if you're a bread company? Same problem your clients have. What's the problem if you're a bread company?
Everybody can buy it.
Bread is a
Commodity.
commodity. What does every bread company have? White bread, wheat bread, 4-grain bread, 9-grain bread, 20-grain bread. So they're all seen as commodities, right? So the need to segment and target was critical for this bank, a bread company in a fairly mature market. And so you can see, based on research, based on talking to customers and so forth, I distinguished the upper crust segment, the fit and trim segment, the fast laner segment, the value investor, and the sustainer. The sustainer is a more low income, disadvantaged market segment where bread, unsliced half loaf of bread may be their sustenance for the day. And they're buying it on the way to work. They can consume it at the lunch break with some butter on it or something, versus the fit and trim that are buying bread, but they're much more interested in their weight, their healthiness. Fast laners, people in a hurry, they want something quick. Bread is a sandwich, something. And upper crust, people who go to like bakeries and buy fine breads that are more esoteric and more expensive. Anyway, you get a sense. This is meant to stimulate your creativity as you look at breaking your markets down and trying to prioritize 1 or 2 segments for the next 12 months. keep in mind that segmenting and targeting means what? That's how I'm gonna tie up my resources. It doesn't mean you won't sell to people who aren't in those segments. It just means you're not gonna tie up resources in doing that. So you can still get customers that buy from you that aren't in those segments, that's fine. It's just, that's not what my marketing effort is focused on. Because I don't have much money or time to do a lot of marketing. Does this make sense to everybody? Are you getting segmentation and targeting and why I'm making a big deal out of it? Yes? Okay. So, as you think about Maya and her piñatas, right? It's an intriguing question. You know, I'm buying a piñata because it's a celebration of some kind, it's some happy event or whatever. But there might be some interesting, unique ways to break that market down into 2 or 3 distinct segments where she might concentrate on 1 or 2 of those segments, right? So we're focusing again on how people buy. People's underlying needs, the nature of their lives, what they're going through. Yes.
So, like, that's the example, but in terms of you speaking of it in general, do you segment first and target second, or do you target first?
You segment, break it down into, then you pick from amongst those segments, which ones you think your client has a better chance of penetrating. Your client has a better chance of doing actionable things. Okay, that's a good question. So what are we doing here in this larger discussion? We're sort of transitioning from how you as the client look at the market and how you get your client to start looking up at the market, because your clients don't. They just assume the market. And so where are we going with this? From the market to marketing. To marketing. How to penetrate those market segments. Okay, so I'm gonna jump ahead ourselves. We'll come back to this a little bit after the fall break. But I want to get you exposed to how your thinking should be moving, the direction your thinking should be moving in. And here's a big idea. What did I say you need to do? This is a big idea. I mentioned it was a big idea. Kind of an important one. If you think about what I've asked you to do, walk in the shoes of the customer, do your research, understand the buyers, understand how they buy. Okay? Identify market segments, concentrate on those segments. So, buyer behavior is the key to the castle. That's why I gave you that handout. The one student did a great job of analyzing buyer behavior for their client last time. If a customer, when they buy things, go through some steps, need recognition, information search, alternative evaluation, a purchase decision, post-purchase assessment. If a customer is going through a buying process, then at the end of the day, what is marketing all about? Yes.
Driving the process in your favor.
Yes, driving the process. I like that statement. Recovered. Let's turn to marketing, back to this. Don't worry about any of this. It's coming, right? That ugly old dude's coming. But what I want you to think about is if there's a customer buying process, this is the big reveal. Your selling process that you design for your client should be the converse of the customer's buying process. Should be the complement. Should reflect and build upon. So Edie, if I have a customer and I'm selling something that is a 3-month buying cycle, it takes the customer 3 months to go from need recognition to actually making it. Like buying a house. Okay. Your decision on where to go to college might have involved quite a bit of time before you finally made a commitment. This is where I'm going. So if the customer has a 3-month buying cycle, what do you have?
3 months.
Selling cycles. That's exactly the point. That's exactly the point. Your selling process, and you're going to need to design a selling process for your clients. Or call it your marketing process. Your marketing process is the converse of your customer's buying process. In effect, what are you doing when you design a selling process? You're taking the customer by the hand and walking them through their buying process. That's what great marketers do. That's great marketing. When you can take the customer by the hand and walk them through their buying process with your tactics, with the things you do to move them. I've told you in that short bit more about marketing than most people know. It's logical. It's simple. So I'm going to move ahead and we're going to come back and delve back into this in more depth. But I want you to see where we're going, because I think once you see where we're going, you're going to get it. You're going to go, oh, okay, now what do I do for my 2 clients? So we have a client a couple years ago, South Bend. And she was involved. Matthew, have you ever heard of something called microblading?
No.
No. You? I'm asking the guys. Microblading? None of the guys have ever heard, I had never heard of it either. So it's the beauty of this program. What is it?
It's a dermatological process that you do to clean your skin from like scars and marks.
No, it's a good guess. Microblading, at least in the US, is,
That's microneedling.
you're not sure?
Not sure about America, no.
Anybody?
For eyebrows.
It's your eyebrows, that's right. So it is dermatological in the sense that they're sort of going to that first layer of the dermis. But if you don't like your eyebrows, everybody's got nice eyebrows, but if you don't like your eyebrows, they will shape them. They'll make them fuller, make them rounder, make them purple if you want purple eyebrows. And it's a popular thing. Okay, so we had an entrepreneur called Virtual Brows and Beauty. That was the name of her business. She had a little studio. I think this was during COVID. Had you joined us?
I had not been here.
Yeah, the students did a filming session there with people wearing masks. For a long time on our website, we had a picture of me at this place and the mask thing is what I remember. But microblading. Okay, So what's the first thing you need to do if you're helping a micro group? Try to model the buying process. How do people make a buying decision to get their eyebrows done? And they did that. And it's not a overnight decision. It's a decision that involves some contemplation. Why? Because I may not like my eyebrows, or I may just not like the way I look, and I think anything I do will make me look better, but why might you have trepidation, Stephanie?
Permanent, like a tattoo, and I end up.
It's not permanent, but it's a few years permanent. Yeah. Okay, that would worry me too.
Ends up bad, you're stuck with it.
Yeah, yeah. And I can do touch-ups, but why else?
I think it also really depends on what you want, like the final look to be. Some people
Yeah,
might-
well, and that's some of what the students did was before and after pictures, which was quite effective in the marketing. But why, think about buyer behavior, stick with the buyer, what's the buyer thinking?
I mean, it's your face, right? So you look silly if it looks silly, and you look silly to everyone around you.
Yes, but that's not what they're worried about. They're worried about whether it's safe. Is it antiseptic? Does it hurt? You know, getting a tattoo hurts. And it's not a tattoo, but it's kind of like a tattoo. Is this person licensed? Do they actually put me under or give me any kind of thing while they're doing it? That's what most buyers would be worried about. As well as what it looks like, but assuming I've seen people with it and I like the idea of it, I still have all these questions. Okay, hold that thought. Next issue. We've studied buyer behavior, we've thought through the process. Next issue. Market segmentation. This is the process. Market segment, buyer behavior, and then market segmentation. What market segments in fact, what market segments do you think the students came up with for her, not for her, with her? Yes.
So probably maybe like teenage girl.
Age was a key segmentation variable.
Yeah.
You're correct.
Maybe like some medical conditions, for example, after chemo.
Not just age, but
Income.
income was a key segmentation factor, because this costs like $400.
Yeah, it's expensive, yeah.
Okay. And you touched on a very interesting variable that people typically miss, but that the students discovered. And that was some kind of health condition. Yes. So the team identified 3 market segments fitting exactly what you just said, Maria. Segment 1, girls 16 to 24. Typically teenagers without a lot of money. Okay, think about them. Get a mental picture of girls 16 to 24. That might have an interest in microblading. Segment number 2, women, professional women from 40 to 55 years old. Think about those 2 segments. Are they different? Do their price sensitivities vary?
Yes.
One segment's pretty price insensitive, the other segment be quite price sensitive, right? Do the reasons they're getting the microblading done differ? Differ significantly. Why is a 16-year-old girl get her eyebrows done? Why is a 43-year-old professional woman? Different motivators, different needs. Third segment,
Completely different. Sorry.
people who've been through cancer treatment and have lost their hair. Different need entirely. You know, I just would like some sense of normalcy, and so I want my eyebrows back. Are you seeing it? Can you see those as 3 distinct segments? You start thinking about what might be actionable with one of them versus another one. In fact, the things you might do with one wouldn't work with the other two necessarily. Do you see that? Efficiency and effectiveness. Okay? So where am I going with this? Now that I have I've understood buyer behavior, I have segmentation, then I'm gonna come back and explain this model. This is, don't worry about this, just worry about the blue. That is a 3-step. What kind of consulting are we doing? There's a 3-step marketing process for virtual brows and beauty. What's step 1? Create awareness of what?
Service exists,
I'm not trying to get you to buy. I'm not there yet. What am I trying to do?
it exists.
I want people to know the brand name Virtual Brows and Beauty. If they hear microblading, I want the first thing they think of is Virtual Brows and Beauty. I'm just trying to create brand awareness, get myself on the map. People know I exist. Step 2. Well, now that people have heard of me, I'm more worried about overcoming their fears about this procedure. Is it safe? Does it hurt? How does it work? How long does it take? So create understanding, comfort, interest. Close the sale. Okay, you with me? What have I just given you? A marketing process that's going to guide how Virtue Brows and Beauty does their marketing. What is in these boxes? What is in these boxes? This is the,
Action.
yeah, this is the action plan. These are the actual promotional things I'm going to do, the tactics I'm going to use. And what do you see here? The things that worked at creating awareness do not work at closing the sale. So I'm having to do different promotional things to create awareness versus to educate the customer and get them interested versus to close the sale. Are you seeing it? And what do you notice about the tactics that we came up with? How am I overcoming people's fears? The students created a video and put it on her Facebook business page on her website. Right? And it was an educational video that actually took place in the place that you could come in and get a consultation session. So you got comfortable with the environment, right? They did pre and post photos of before you got it done, after you got it done. But what do you notice about these? Come on, folks, we're working with low-income people. What do you notice about these?
They're free.
They're all low cost. They're all low cost. All these tactics, and I've got them laid out here, these and others, all these tactics, some used to create awareness, some used to create interest and preference and overcome fear, some used to close the sale, are relatively low cost. More using the entrepreneur's time than money. Are you getting it? The light coming on a little bit. This is what it's about. This is what you're doing for your clients. Amen? I get an amen? Amen. See you Thursday.